People are late because they are either a disempowered codependent or a falsely empowered codependent. At the heart of whichever side of the codependency scale they're on is an attempt to regain the power that they've given away. Let me explain. In the case of the disempowered codependent, this is what most people would think of. They're people pleasers. They put everyone else's needs first. And what they really struggle with is the inability to say no. They feel guilty unless they make everybody else's priorities their main priority. And so it's a subconscious attempt to regain a level of personal autonomy and control. Again, this is a subconscious process, and so they lose track. They're historically poor at time management. They'll get caught up in conversations or look at the clock and say, oh, I've got 20 minutes. It won't take me long to rebuild this cabinet, and they start a project right there at the end. Now, again, it's mostly subconscious that they take on this endeavor right at the last minute because they feel so powerless inside, because they're making everyone else's priorities. They put everyone else's priorities ahead of their own. And so showing up late is a chance to get power back, because let's face it, if someone's waiting for you, who's in power? The person who's late. Now, what about the falsely empowered? This is typically the uber successful person who's so busy and has so much going on. And it's true, they do. But what people don't recognize with the uber successful person is they're massively codependent also. You see, what's different about this side of the scale is they were so smothered and controlled as a child, or parentified and asked to take care of a mom or dad who was sick, or there was a divorce. But they were put in a position of power at too young of an age. And so their childhood was stripped from them. They were actually massively abandoned. And so they end up, underneath all of that uber successfulness is tremendous shame and abandonment. And that's why they keep themselves so busy. And so in childhood, they lost their power, their inherent power, their value and worth as a child. It was not okay for them to be a child. They were asked to take on the emotional responsibility for the adults in their life. And so they've taken that uber, responsibility, that parentification, and they've turned that shame-based, it's become an accelerant, kind of like the booster engines on the space shuttle. They've just used all of that to drive them and have all of these activities. But underneath it all, the falsely empowered codependent who's uber successful and always late, underneath all of that is tremendous abandonment and a fear of intimacy, because look at what happened to them as a child. They could not be a child. And so being late for the uber successful, falsely empowered person who's uber busy is all about distance and control and making sure a person doesn't get close enough to them, because again, they are in the power position. So whether someone is late because they're on the more disempowered, what we would tend to call, I'm not calling them this, but look like the victim position, or the uber successful, falsely empowered, who looks like the successful victor position, at the heart of whichever side they're on, both have had an inherent loss of power. And this is their attempt to reconcile it. This isn't here to judge them. That's pain. That's trauma. That's heartbreaking. And so they're just trying to navigate this. Now, I'm not condoning that we don't hold them accountable and responsible, and that it's still their responsibility to go back and heal that pain and trauma. Now that they're adults, they get the choice. They can stay this, especially if they're watching this. They get to decide if they're going to deal with that underlying trauma or not. If they choose not to, then they're choosing to stay in that pain and suppress it. One other distinction, the disempowered is more closely aligned to the pain. If they're listening, they'll be listening still to this because they want to heal their pain. It's very rare that the falsely empowered, they have mostly yelled and screamed at me, thrown the phone and everything. He's full of it. They probably aren't even listening now. It would be rare for them because power is their game. And so to lose that and get vulnerable scares the living heck out of them. So it is the rare falsely empowered person who will stick through a video like this, get the solution, and actually do the work. Both sides deserve tremendous praise for the effort to do this healing work. Both sides are equally in pain. Neither one is better or worse than the other. All right? So what are some solutions to start dealing with this false power that they're both trying to generate, which the problem is it doesn't work. It creates separation because the person waiting is upset and feels neglected and uncared for. And so you can't have a relationship when whichever side is manipulating for power. So what do they do? Well, I have several suggestions. One, head to my website, kennyweiss.net. Go to my blog, my Best Day blog. I have articles on both the falsely and disempowered codependent. Just look for the codependence keyword and you'll see all these articles. Start gaining knowledge about how these dynamics work and increase your knowledge around both the disempowered and the falsely empowered and what's underneath their pain. The second suggestion is go to my YouTube channel. Just search Kenny Weiss on YouTube. Go to my codependence playlist. You're going to see very long, detailed videos on both of these topics. Both of those are free options that will really help you start to heal your codependence. All right? So there you go. That's the psychology behind why somebody is always late.